It was almost midnight at the Ocean View Medical Center in Santa Monica. The city lights blinked far below the window, soft and golden against the cold hospital glass. Haley Morgan, 7 months pregnant, lay half asleep in her private suite, an IV taped to her wrist and a faint beeping sound from the fetal monitor keeping rhythm with her shallow breaths. The air smelled like antiseptic and rain. For a moment, everything was quiet, too quiet, until the door burst open. Adrian Blackwell stepped in, tall, immaculate, wearing a navy suit that looked freshly pressed from a Beverly Hills gala. His Rolex glinted under the fluorescent light. But what froze Haley's heart wasn't him, it was the woman following behind. Sienna Vale, 24. Perfect hair, perfect smile, Dior bag on her arm, phone already raised like she was vlogging a fashion event instead of intruding into a maternity ward. Adrian? Haley's voice cracked. What is she doing here? He didn't answer right away. He looked at her like she was a stranger occupying a hotel room he had accidentally booked. Then he said, cold and clean, you don't belong here anymore. Haley blinked, trying to understand. I'm your wife. I'm carrying your child. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're carrying drama. I'm done. Sienna smirked, shifting her weight, her heels clicking against the tile. Honey, let's not make a scene, she said sweetly, as if she owned the place. Haley tried to sit up, gripping the side rail of the bed, her belly heavy. The monitor beeped faster, warning of stress. Please, Adrian, not here. Not now. He stepped closer, voice low and venomous. You've been milking this pregnancy long enough. You're embarrassing me. The nurse by the door gasped softly, sensing the danger. Sir, she needs rest. But Adrian's temper snapped. He shoved Haley's arm away when she reached for him. Then, with one careless motion, he kicked the edge of the hospital bed. The jolt sent Haley off balance. Her legs buckled and she fell sideways onto the cold white floor. The monitor screamed in red. Sienna's hand flew to her mouth, but not in horror. She was trying not to laugh. Oh my God, she's so dramatic, she whispered. Blood seeped through the thin hospital gown. Haley clutched her stomach, gasping, my baby, please. The nurse shouted for help. A security guard ran in. Somewhere down the hallway, a patient's husband pulled out his iPhone and began recording. Adrian froze, realizing too late that the world was watching him, the hospital's cameras, the phones, the witnesses. But pride overpowered fear. He straightened his jacket, looked down at Haley, trembling on the floor, and muttered, You did this to yourself. Then he turned to leave. Haley's scream followed him out the door, echoing down the sterile corridor, raw, terrified, unforgettable. And in that moment, the city of Los Angeles began to turn against him. The hallway outside Suite 12B smelled of bleach and panic. The nurse shouted for help while another nurse rushed in with a fetal monitor cart. Haley was still on the floor, her face white as the tile, one hand clutching her swollen belly, the other slick with blood. Her breathing came in short, frightened gasps. The room felt colder, louder, crueler than any nightmare she'd ever known. Ma'am, stay still, the nurse urged, kneeling beside her. We're getting the doctor. Haley tried to speak, but her lips trembled. He kicked the bed. I fell. Please, my baby, don't let him take baby. The nurse pressed a towel against her thigh, eyes wide. We won't, I promise. Just breathe for me. But Haley couldn't breathe. The memory replayed in jagged flashes. Adrian's cold voice, Sienna's mocking laugh, the weight of the fall. She felt her child twist inside her. An ache deeper than pain, a silent plea for help. In the corner, Sienna leaned against the wall, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to see. Adrian stood motionless, face stone. He whispered to her, Stay calm. Don't say a word. They'll handle it. When the doctor burst in, Adrian suddenly shifted into performance mode, voice full of feigned concern. She tripped, doctor. She's been unstable lately. I told her to be careful. Haley's eyes widened. That's not true. Sir, please step out, the doctor interrupted, but Adrian didn't move. His presence hung in the room like a weapon. Mr. Blackwell, the nurse said firmer now, you're upsetting the patient. Finally, Adrian stepped back, exhaling like a man inconvenienced by chaos. He turned to Sienna. Come on, we'll wait outside. This is ridiculous. When the door closed behind them, the air changed. The nurse whispered, We need to call security, now. Haley shook her head weakly. No, he'll destroy you if you do. He owns this place. He funds the maternity wing. The nurse hesitated. She knew that name, Adrian Blackwell. the hospital's biggest donor. His photo hung in the lobby beside a marble plaque for the future of families. The doctor examined Haley quickly. Mild abruption, possibly stress-induced. We need to stabilize both of you. Tears slid down Haley's cheeks. He doesn't want the baby. He wants to erase us. The nurse took her trembling hand. Then you have to stay strong until someone else can protect you. Who can we call? Haley's mind flickered through names, none she trusted. Her family was across town. Her phone lay shattered on the floor. But then she remembered one name that always answered, Ethan, her brother. Call Ethan Morgan, she whispered, voice almost gone. He's in my contacts. The nurse nodded, grabbed the cracked iPhone and scrolled. Under emergency, there it was. Ethan Morgan, do not ignore. She hit the call. The line rang once. Then came his voice, steady, deep, alert. Who is this? This is Nurse Kelly from Ocean View Medical, she said, trembling. Your sister's been hurt. We're trying to stabilize her, but she's what? His tone sharpened like a blade. She's bleeding. We need family consent for emergency observation. A long silence. Then Ethan's voice dropped to a terrifying calm. Who hurt my sister? Haley heard his question faintly through the nurse's phone speaker. For the first time in hours, she exhaled, a broken sigh of relief mixed with dread. Tell him, she gasped. Adrian did this. The nurse met her eyes, horrified, and nodded slowly. Outside, through the glass wall, Adrian and Sienna sat in the waiting area, whispering and smirking, unaware that the call had already been made. The nurse ended the call and looked at Haley. Your brother's on his way. Haley's tears spilled freely now. He'll come for me. The doctor injected a mild sedative to calm her pulse. Rest now. Let us take care of you. Haley's eyelids fluttered, exhaustion dragging her down. As the medicine took effect, she whispered one last plea into the sterile air. Please, God, don't let him win. The monitor steadied, but the silence in the room felt too heavy, too final. The camera above the doorway blinked red, recording every second. And somewhere out there, Ethan Morgan was already breaking every speed limit between Glendale and Santa Monica. He was coming, and when he arrived, nothing in Adrian Blackwell's perfect world would survive it. The phone slipped from the nurse's trembling hand, still on speaker. Haley's faint sobs crackled through the line. For a split second, Ethan Morgan thought he was dreaming. He was standing outside the Hollywood Palladium, finishing a late-night security shift for a celebrity charity gala. Neon lights reflected off the hood of his black SUV. But the sound of his sister's voice, weak, terrified, pleading, ripped through every layer of calm he'd built since his days in the Marines. Haley? He barked. What's happening? Talk to me. The nurse's voice quivered. Sir, she's safe for now. She fell, but there was trauma to the abdomen. We're stabilizing her. Ethan's grip tightened around the steering wheel. She didn't fall, he said through clenched teeth. Someone hurt her. The nurse hesitated. Yes, sir, your sister said her husband was involved. That was all he needed to hear. The streetlights blurred as he started the car, the growl of the engine cutting through the night. Text me the hospital name, he ordered. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He hung up and hit speed dial. Marcus, he said when his brother answered groggily from New York. Adrian put his hands on Haley. She's in the hospital, 7 months pregnant. She's bleeding. The line went silent. Then Marcus's voice, low and surgical, replied, Where? Santa Monica. Ocean View Medical. I'll be on the first flight. Don't do anything stupid, Ethan. I'm past stupid. Ethan ended the call. His eyes glowed with fury, headlights slicing through traffic as he drove like a man possessed. He remembered the first time he met Adrian Blackwell, at the wedding rehearsal dinner 2 years ago. Adrian wore the same fake smile he used in magazine covers, shaking hands with everyone as if blessing them with attention. Ethan had felt something off about him then, the way he'd looked at Haley not like a woman he loved, but like a trophy he'd won. Ethan had warned her, Men who control your bank account don't stop there, Haley. They start controlling your heartbeat. Now, that prophecy had come true. Inside the hospital, Haley lay pale under harsh white lights. She gripped the nurse's hand weakly. Did you call him? He's on his way, the nurse assured her. Haley exhaled shakily. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to believe she might survive this. Outside, Adrian paced near the vending machines, whispering to his publicist over the phone. Damage control now. If anything leaks, you say she's been emotionally unstable since her mother died. No comments about the mistress. Call her a family friend. Got it? Sienna scrolled through social media, deleting her latest posts. Babe, people already saw me tag the hospital earlier, she said, half whispering. It's getting traction. Adrian's jaw clenched. Delete it all. I'll handle her brothers if they try anything. They're nobodies. Down the street, the low rumble of a speeding engine grew louder. Ethan's SUV skidded into the hospital driveway, brakes screaming. He jumped out, still wearing his black security jacket, boots hitting the pavement like thunder. The night guard recognized him and moved aside without a word. He stormed through the lobby, eyes wild, scanning for his sister. The receptionist started to stop him, then saw the blood on his knuckles from where he'd gripped the steering wheel too hard and froze. Suite 12B, she whispered. Ethan took the stairs 2 at a time. Every echo of his boots felt like a countdown to war. When he reached the hallway, he saw Adrian standing there, back turned. For one frozen second, time stopped. Adrian? Ethan's voice dropped to a growl that shook the sterile air. Adrian turned, startled but trying to recover his smug composure. Ethan, this is not what it looks like. Ethan's fist collided with the wall beside Adrian's head, an inch from his face. The plaster cracked. The sound echoed down the corridor. You laid a hand on my sister? Ethan hissed. You kicked a pregnant woman? You think your money makes you bulletproof? Adrian paled. You should leave before I call security. Ethan leaned in close, his breath hot with rage. You already called me. Behind the glass door, Haley's monitor beeped steadily again. She couldn't see what was happening, but for the first time, her breathing eased. She knew that voice. It was the sound of home. And outside that hospital room, war had just begun. The hospital corridor was silent, except for the steady hum of fluorescent lights. Nurses pretended to chart notes while sneaking glances at the tall man in the hallway, the one radiating fury. Ethan Morgan stood outside Suite 12B like a storm in human form, his jaw tight, fists still raw. Through the glass, he could see Haley asleep, Ivy running, the monitor tracing the fragile heartbeat of her unborn child. She looked smaller than he remembered, smaller and too still. Down the corridor, Adrian Blackwell was surrounded by 2 administrators in expensive suits. He wasn't wearing guilt, he was wearing charm. Gentlemen, he said smoothly, I'm deeply concerned about my wife's mental state. She's been under stress. The fall was an accident. I don't want her embarrassed in the media. One administrator nodded quickly. Of course, Mr. Blackwell. Confidentiality is our priority. Ethan's head snapped toward them. Confidentiality? You mean cover-up? Adrian turned with a lazy smile. Ethan, you're not a patient or family authority. Please don't raise your voice. Family authority? Ethan spat. She's my sister. That makes me the only authority that matters right now. The taller administrator stepped in. Sir, this is a private facility. You'll have to wait in the visitor's lounge until... Ethan shoved the man's clipboard back into his chest. You think I'm leaving her alone with that psycho again? Not a chance. The nurse from earlier, Kelly, appeared beside him, voice trembling. Mr. Morgan, it's okay. She's safe. She's sleeping. Adrian folded his arms, his confidence growing again. Kelly, thank you. I'll handle this from here. You may go. But the nurse didn't move. Her eyes darted from Ethan's clenched fists to Haley's pale face. Something in her conscience snapped. She lowered her voice. Mr. Morgan, for the record, your sister didn't fall. I saw the angle of impact. The bruise pattern doesn't match a fall. Someone kicked the bed. Ethan froze. His chest rose and fell like a man trying not to explode. And that someone, he said slowly, turning his gaze back to Adrian, is standing right here. Adrian's mask slipped for half a second. Watch your mouth, ex-military. You touch me and I'll have you arrested. Ethan stepped closer, whispering, Then you better call your lawyer now. The administrators glanced at each other, alarmed. Hospitals didn't like noise, and this was thunder. Moments later, Marcus called from his flight, voice calm but sharp. Ethan, listen. Don't hit him. Record everything. They'll try to discharge her to erase liability. Ethan muttered into the phone. They already are. In the back office, the chief medical officer was whispering to legal counsel. We can't afford a scandal. He donated the entire neonatal wing. So what do we do? The lawyer asked. Simple, the doctor sighed. We file her as voluntary discharge. If she leaves on her own, we're free. But Nurse Kelly overheard. Her pulse quickened. She slipped back to Haley's room, placed a small body camera from security on the table, and whispered, "Just in case they try to move you." She pressed record. Meanwhile, Ethan marched into the administrator's office. "If you discharge her tonight, I'll have every local news crew parked on your front steps by sunrise. You think you can hide what happened in there? Go ahead and try me." Adrian smirked. "You're bluffing." Ethan leaned forward, eyes burning. "I run security for half the red carpet events in this city. I know every camera crew in LA. You think I can't make one phone call?" The room went still. Adrian's confidence flickered. The administrator swallowed hard. "Perhaps we should wait for legal review before any discharge." Ethan turned to Nurse Kelly. "Stay with her. Don't let anyone touch that IV. If anyone comes near, call me first." Kelly nodded, shaking. "Yes, sir." Adrian shot Ethan a venomous look. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Ethan didn't blink. "No, Adrian, you did the second you raised your foot." For a heartbeat, neither man moved. Outside, the city lights of Santa Monica glittered like cold witnesses. The hospital tried to swallow the scandal, but the walls were already cracking. And somewhere above them, a security camera kept recording, capturing the moment a millionaire started losing control. The next morning, the sky over Los Angeles looked bruised, gray clouds hanging low above the glass towers of downtown. Marcus Morgan's flight from New York had landed before sunrise, but he hadn't slept a second. He wore a black suit, his tie loosened, and dark circles marked the edges of his eyes. In his hand was a slim leather briefcase filled with legal templates, financial statements, and one purpose: destroy Adrian Blackwell without leaving a single fingerprint. The Uber driver glanced in the mirror as Marcus tapped away on his MacBook Pro. "Business trip?" the driver asked. "Family," Marcus replied, voice flat. The car turned toward the coast, the morning fog wrapping Santa Monica in a sheet of white. As soon as Ocean View Medical Center appeared, Marcus's stomach twisted. He'd spent years handling corporate scandals, embezzlement, insider trading, but never one that involved his own blood. He stepped into the hospital lobby, greeted not by warmth, but by whispers. Nurses leaned toward each other, murmuring. Everyone knew about the incident in Suite 12B. Adrian's name carried both power and fear. But Marcus was built for rooms like this, rooms where money tried to bully truth. He approached the front desk. "Marcus Morgan. I'm counsel for Haley Morgan. Where is she?" The receptionist hesitated. "Sir, the patient is in recovery. Visiting hours start at 9. Marcus slid a business card across the counter, embossed, heavy, the kind that made people blink twice. "Then I'll consider this a business meeting." Her eyes widened. "One moment, please." Minutes later, Nurse Kelly appeared, relief flashing across her face. "You're her brother?" "Yes," Marcus said, following her down the hall. "How bad is she?" "She's stable, but the stress, it's affecting the baby. We're keeping her under observation." "Mr. Blackwell tried to move her to another facility last night, but your brother stopped it." Marcus nodded. "He always was the physical one." When they reached the room, Marcus paused outside the glass. Haley was asleep, pale as moonlight, her hair sticking to her forehead. Ethan sat beside her, shoulders hunched, a cup of untouched coffee in his hand. "Marcus," Ethan said, standing. "You came fast." "First flight out," Marcus replied, setting his briefcase on the table. "Tell me everything." Ethan recounted every detail: the kick, the blood, the hospital's attempt to hide it. Marcus listened without interrupting, typing notes. When Ethan finished, Marcus leaned back, eyes hard. "He assaulted a pregnant woman in a medical facility. That's aggravated battery under California law. And if the hospital covered it up, that's conspiracy." Ethan exhaled. "He's trying to make her look crazy. He told them she's unstable." Marcus smirked faintly. "Then we give him what he's afraid of most, proof." He turned to Kelly. "Do you have access to the hallway camera footage?" Kelly hesitated. "I could maybe pull a copy before security wipes the logs tonight." "Do it," Marcus said, "and make sure the timestamp shows hospital staff in the room. He'll claim no witnesses." Ethan frowned. "He's got money. He'll buy silence." Marcus opened his briefcase and handed him a folder. "Then we buy noise. Every investor, every donor, every person who ever shook his hand will hear this story. Once reputation goes, the money follows." Haley stirred weakly. "Marcus." He was beside her instantly. "Hey sis, you're safe now." Her eyes filled with tears. He said I made him look bad. Marcus took her hand gently. Good, let's make him look worse. A faint smile cracked Haley's trembling lips. Ethan chuckled darkly. Guess it's your turn now, lawyer. Marcus straightened his jacket. No more hiding bruises behind marble walls. Outside, the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting gold over the hospital sign that still read, Ocean View Medical, where families heal. Marcus looked up at it and whispered, let's see how they heal after this. Because by the end of today, the hospital wouldn't just have a patient, it would have a scandal. Adrian Blackwell sat in his Mercedes S-Class in the hospital's private parking lot, the engine idling, the city still wrapped in morning haze. The faint scent of Sienna's perfume filled the cabin, sweet, synthetic, poisonous. His jaw flexed as he stared at the reflection of himself in the tinted glass window. For the first time in years, he saw something he didn't like. A man losing control. He opened his iPhone, scrolling through messages from his PR manager, Brent. Press starting to sniff around. TMZ got a tip about an incident at Ocean View. You need a narrative now. Adrian typed back. Blame stress. Say Haley's been unstable during pregnancy. Get a doctor to confirm emotional episodes. Use words like concerned husband. He hit send, then called his attorney. We're filing for emergency custody, he ordered. Say she's unfit to care for the baby. Psychological distress, erratic behavior, whatever works. Draft it before noon. The lawyer hesitated. Adrian, she's still in the hospital. I don't care, Adrian snapped. I want her name off everything before that kid's born. I'll handle the optics. Sienna watched him quietly from the passenger seat, pretending to scroll through Instagram but listening to every word. She had seen men like him, powerful, cruel, magnetic, and she knew one truth. Their downfall always started with ego. You think that's smart? She said softly. Going after her now while she's bleeding in a hospital? Adrian turned his head sharply. Don't act like you care about her. Sienna shrugged. I don't, but I do care about you not looking like a monster. Cameras are everywhere. You can't PR your way out of that kick, Adrian. He glared at her. You think I'm stupid? No, she said, meeting his gaze. I think you're scared. For a moment, silence. Then Adrian leaned back, smirking. Scared? Please, I built half this city's skyline. The hospital takes my money, the press takes my calls. By tomorrow, Haley will be a fragile mother with anxiety issues, and I'll be the loving husband who tried to help. He didn't notice the driver in the front seat stiffened slightly. Sam, his chauffeur of 5 years, kept his eyes forward, hands gripping the wheel tighter. He had driven Adrian through affairs, charity galas, and board meetings. But this was different. This was evil wearing a suit. Sam's phone vibrated quietly in his pocket. He glanced down, saw a missed call from an unknown number. Ethan Morgan. A message followed. If you know what he did, help us. It's time. Sam didn't reply. Not yet. But the words burned in his mind. Inside the hospital, Marcus was already planting seeds. He had obtained a flash drive with footage from the hallway camera, Adrian's figure clearly visible entering Haley's room, then the sound of impact and Haley's cry. It wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough. Enough to destroy him publicly. Adrian, unaware, called another contact, his fixer, a man named Cole who specialized in making stories disappear. There's a nurse, Adrian said. Kelly, she saw too much. Find out what she wants and make it go away. Cole's voice was dry. How far do you want this to go? As far as it needs to, Adrian said. Money talks. He hung up, unaware that his call had been automatically recorded by the car's security system, a new feature Sienna had set up weeks earlier to protect their privacy. She smiled faintly, watching the recording indicator blink red. One day, she thought, this might save her life. Adrian lit a cigarette, inhaled deeply, and exhaled arrogance. By tonight, everyone will believe she's insane, he muttered. Sienna looked out at the hospital windows where Haley lay fighting for her baby. Or maybe, she said under her breath, everyone will finally believe you are. He didn't hear her. He was already dialing another number, his mind on press statements, lawyers, and damage control. He still believed he could erase her. But the truth was already writing itself, in pixels, recordings, and witnesses that money couldn't buy. The sun was barely up when Ethan stepped back into Suite 12B, carrying 2 coffees that had long gone cold. The scent of antiseptic filled the air. Haley lay half awake, her eyes swollen from crying. The hospital gown hung loosely over her shoulders. A monitor beeped softly beside her, a metronome for her heartbeat and her baby's. Ethan set the cups down and forced a shaky smile. "Morning, sunshine." She turned her head slowly. "Did you sleep?" He laughed without humor. "Sleep's overrated." He tried to sound strong, but the crack in his voice betrayed him. When he lifted her blanket to tuck it around her legs, his breath caught. A bruise, dark, jagged, and unmistakable, spread from the side of her calf up toward her knee, the shape of a shoe print. The edge of a polished sole, clear as a signature. For a long moment, Ethan didn't move. His eyes darkened, his pulse hammered. Did he do this? His voice came out low and dangerous. Haley froze. Tears welled instantly. "Please don't. Answer me, Haley." Her lips trembled. He kicked the bed. It hit my leg. I fell." Ethan knelt down beside her, studying the bruise again. "No, that's not the bed. That's him." His voice broke into something raw. "He kicked you. You were 7 months pregnant, and he kicked you." Haley turned away, ashamed, as if she had to protect her abuser's name even now. "He said I provoked him, that I humiliated him in front of her." "Her?" Ethan's head jerked up. "Sienna. She was there." That was it. Ethan stood, fists curling. "I swear to God I'll—" "Stop," Haley pleaded, her voice desperate. "If you go after him, he'll destroy us. He's got people. He owns everything." Ethan leaned close, his face inches from hers. "He doesn't own me." Before she could answer, Nurse Kelly entered, carrying Haley's chart. She froze when she saw the bruise. "Oh my God, they said she tripped." Ethan looked up sharply. "Who said that?" "The administrators. They told us to keep quiet because Mr. Blackwell funds the neonatal unit." Her voice dropped. "They're scared of him." Ethan straightened, jaw tight. "Then maybe it's time someone scares them back." He pulled out his phone, opening the camera app. "Sir, you can't," Kelly began. "Yes, I can." He snapped photos of the bruise from every angle, the timestamp glowing on the screen. "This isn't just a bruise, it's evidence." Kelly's hands shook. "They'll fire me if they find out I helped." Ethan met her gaze. "You didn't help. You did your job." She hesitated, then whispered, "There's security footage from the hallway. It records who went in and out of the room." "Where?" "Security office lower level, but it's locked. Only admin has access." Ethan's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Locks don't last long around me." Kelly blinked, uncertain whether he was joking. He leaned down to Haley again. "You rest. Let me handle this." She grabbed his wrist. "Promise me you won't do something stupid." Ethan's eyes softened for a heartbeat. "Too late for that." He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, kissed it gently, then turned toward the door. The fluorescent lights flickered as he walked out, his reflection stretching along the glass walls, dark, determined, unstoppable. Behind him, Haley whispered a prayer. "Please don't let him get hurt." Downstairs, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Got the footage. Stay calm." Ethan typed back, "Too late." I saw the bruise. He shoved the phone in his pocket, pushing through the hallway crowd. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought burned with one truth. Someone had hurt his sister. And before the day was over, the whole city would know his name. By late afternoon, the air in Los Angeles felt electric, thick with rumors, radio chatter, and the quiet pulse of something about to explode. Ocean View Medical Center had tried to bury the story before it could breathe. But truth has a way of leaking through cracks, especially when those cracks are shaped like guilt. Marcus Morgan sat in the hospital cafeteria, his laptop open beside a half-drunk Starbucks coffee. The glow from the screen lit the dark circles under his eyes. Across from him, Nurse Kelly handed him a small USB drive wrapped in a napkin, like it was something dangerous. "They'll fire me if they find out," she whispered. "But I couldn't just—" "You did the right thing," Marcus said. "How much footage?" 3 minutes. From the hallway camera outside Suite 12B. Marcus plugged in the drive, his heartbeat spiking as the video loaded. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but it didn't need to be. There was Adrian Blackwell, tailored suit, arrogance dripping from every motion, walking into Haley's room with Sienna at his side. A few minutes later, a flurry of movement, and then a sharp jolt that made the camera shake. The sound wasn't clear, but you could see it. Haley collapsing, Adrian's arm jerking, and the unmistakable image of a man looking down at a woman in pain, then walking out as if nothing happened. Marcus exhaled. Got him. He emailed a single screenshot to one of his old contacts, a journalist named Dana Morales, known for tearing down corrupt CEOs. The subject line was short and surgical. Blackwell, hospital, pregnant wife, assault. 10 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Dana's text appeared. If this is real, I'll bury him. Give me an hour. Ethan walked in then, face flushed from pacing. Please tell me you've got something. Marcus turned the laptop toward him. Ethan leaned in, eyes narrowing as the clip played. When the image of Haley hitting the floor appeared, Ethan's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. I swear, I'm gonna… No, Marcus interrupted. You're gonna stay calm. We let the press do the fighting first. Anger makes mistakes, evidence doesn't. Ethan glared. You really think headlines will stop a guy like Adrian? Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. No, but investors will. Meanwhile, in a penthouse overlooking Beverly Hills, Adrian's phone buzzed nonstop. His PR manager called again. We have a problem. A journalist just contacted me asking for comment about an assault video. Adrian's stomach flipped. That's impossible. There's no video. Apparently there is. She says she's seen screenshots. Adrian's temper cracked. Find out who leaked it. Sienna sat across the room scrolling Twitter, her face drained of color. Adrian, your name's trending. He snatched the phone from her hand. The screen flashed with a headline. Real estate tycoon Adrian Blackwell accused of assaulting pregnant wife in hospital. Hashtags were already multiplying. Justice for Haley, Blackwell scandal, protect mothers. Adrian felt his chest tighten. He'd been in crisis before. Lawsuits, affairs, angry investors. But this was different. The public loved an underdog. A bleeding pregnant woman in a hospital bed? That was a story money couldn't silence. At Ocean View, Marcus's phone lit again. Dana texted, posted. It's everywhere. Within minutes, every major outlet had picked it up. Talk radio hosts debated it. Morning show producers called for statements. Even a women's rights organization in LA issued a press release demanding an investigation. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his temples. Step one done. Ethan's phone rang. It was Haley. Her voice was weak, but her tone carried something new. Hope. I heard people are talking, she whispered. Is it true? It's true, Ethan said. The city's finally seeing who he really is. Haley cried softly on the other end. Then maybe my baby will be born into a world where he's not a god anymore. Ethan's throat tightened. He never was Haley, he just paid people to pretend. Outside the hospital window, news vans began parking along the curb, cameras rising like metal flowers facing the storm. The world was watching now. And for the first time, Adrian Blackwell couldn't buy silence, because truth had gone viral. Night fell over Los Angeles, but the lights of Ocean View Medical burned bright. Haley Morgan couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the memory of the fall came back. The cold floor, the laughter, the taste of blood in her mouth. The sedatives had worn off, leaving only exhaustion and fear. But beneath that fear was something harder, sharper. Anger. She turned her head and saw Marcus sitting beside her bed, typing quietly on his laptop. His sleeves were rolled up, his tie gone. The hum of the keyboard sounded like strategy. Working again? She asked weakly. He looked up, softening. Always. You're trending, by the way. Haley blinked. Trending? He nodded. The video's out. People are furious. Even a senator reposted the story. Adrian's image is collapsing in real time. For the first time, Haley's lips twitched into something close to a smile. Good. But Marcus's gaze darkened. It's not enough yet. We need history, patterns, proving this isn't the first time he's hurt you. Haley's throat tightened. You want me to relive it? I want him to never do it again, to anyone. Haley looked down at her trembling hands. She'd hidden the truth for years, convincing herself it wasn't abuse if there were no bruises. Adrian never needed fists. His power was colder, quieter. It started small, she whispered. He'd correct the way I spoke at dinners. Said I sounded too emotional. Then he took my credit cards, said it was easier if he handled the finances. I thought he was protecting me. Marcus typed as she spoke, his face unreadable. Then he started controlling my clothes, said certain colors made me look cheap. He deleted my social media accounts, told me a wife shouldn't need validation online. When I got pregnant, he said it was time to quit my job. That he didn't want his child raised by a working mother. She stopped, tears spilling silently. That's when I stopped existing. I wasn't Haley anymore. I was Mrs. Blackwell. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's psychological imprisonment, Haley. Financial coercion. Every text, every email. Do you still have them? She nodded weakly. He made me back up my phone to his iCloud, but I kept screenshots on an old flash drive. It's in my jewelry box at home. Ethan appeared in the doorway, carrying a paper bag of food. Home's locked down. His security's guarding it, but I can get in. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. We'll need a warrant, or a way around one. Haley's voice grew small. He used to make me apologize when he lost his temper. Once, I said the wrong thing in front of his investors. He locked me out on the balcony of our penthouse for an hour in the cold, said it would help me think before I speak. Ethan dropped the bag onto the table, eyes burning. That son of a... Ethan, Marcus warned. We use brains, not fists. That's how we win. Haley looked at them both. He'll come for me when this goes public. He'll say I'm lying. Marcus leaned forward. Then we'll drown him in truth. He opened his laptop and clicked a folder labeled Pattern. Inside were copies of bank transfers showing Adrian's manipulation, payments to therapists he hired to claim Haley had postpartum anxiety, invoices for luxury gifts sent to Sienna under company expenses. By morning, Marcus said, this file goes to the city attorney. Haley closed her eyes, whispering, he always said no one would believe me. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. They believe you now. Outside, news vans still lined the street, headlights cutting through the dark. Haley watched them through the glass. For the first time in years, the city didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a witness. She turned back to Marcus. Then let's make him confess without saying a word. He nodded. We will. Because every empire built on control eventually collapses under the weight of the truth. By morning, the world had chosen a side. News outlets ran with the story. Millionaire real estate mogul accused of assaulting pregnant wife. Every station replayed the blurry hospital footage. Haley's cry echoed through living rooms from California to New York. Justice for Haley trended nationwide. But Adrian Blackwell was not the kind of man to stay quiet while his empire burned. Inside his penthouse office overlooking Beverly Hills, he stood before a wall of glass, phone pressed to his ear. Brent, I need control back. Today. Push a counter story. Haley has been suffering from perinatal psychosis. Use the medical jargon. Make it sound credible. I'll send you her medical reports. Adrian, this is spiraling, his publicist warned. The video's real. We can't spin a kick into compassion. Adrian's jaw twitched. We can if I'm the loving husband trying to get help for his unstable wife. You know how sympathy works. He hung up before the man could answer, then turned to Sienna, who sat curled on the leather couch, clutching her phone. Her mascara had smudged, and her perfect influencer calm was cracking. Why are you just sitting there? He snapped. Post something supportive, something about mental health. Make it sound like you care about her. Sienna looked up, trembling. Adrian, this is getting ugly. People are attacking me online. They're calling me a homewrecker. He stepped closer, eyes cold. You wanted the spotlight, sweetheart. Congratulations. You're in it. Tears welled in her eyes. You said you'd protect me. And I will, he hissed, if you do as I say. Meanwhile, across town at the hospital, Ethan scrolled through the latest headlines, rage boiling beneath his skin. He's calling her mentally unstable, he said, slamming his phone onto the table. He's twisting everything. Haley, pale but alert, looked up from her hospital bed. He's predictable. He's always blamed me for his actions. Let him talk. Marcus, standing by the window, replied, he's about to bury himself. The more he speaks, the more contradictions we get on record. The TV in the room flickered as a live press conference began. Adrian stepped up to a podium outside his office building, cameras flashing. He looked calm, remorseful, his specialty. I love my wife, he began smoothly. But Haley has been struggling with emotional challenges throughout her pregnancy. The incident at the hospital has been misunderstood. I would never intentionally harm her or our child. Gasps filled the hospital room. Haley's eyes widened as Adrian continued, every word carefully crafted to rewrite reality. I ask the media to respect our privacy as Haley receives the help she needs. I'm doing everything I can to support her recovery. Ethan punched the wall. He's painting her as crazy. Marcus didn't blink. Good. Let him lie on record. Once we release the time-stamped footage and medical reports, he'll be finished. We're giving him the rope to hang himself. As Adrian wrapped up, a reporter shouted, Mr. Blackwell, did you kick your wife while she was 7 months pregnant? Adrian's mask cracked for half a second. Absolutely not. That video is manipulated. Marcus smirked. That's the clip that'll destroy him. Minutes later, the video of his denial hit social media. Side-by-side comparisons appeared. Adrian's words on one half, the unedited footage on the other. Millions of views poured in within an hour. By noon, hashtags shifted from "Justice for Haley" to "Liar Blackwell." At the hospital, Haley sat quietly, one hand on her belly, listening to the noise of a world that had finally turned against her abuser. Ethan whispered, "He's losing control." Marcus closed his laptop, a glint of victory in his eyes. "No, Ethan. He's already lost it. He just doesn't know yet." Outside, thunder rolled over the Pacific. The storm Adrian had built with lies was finally coming home, and this time, there was nowhere left to hide. The storm broke quietly. Rain swept over Beverly Hills, washing the city in silver streaks. Reporters crowded the sidewalk outside Adrian Blackwell's penthouse, microphones ready, umbrellas trembling in the wind. Cameras flashed every few seconds, waiting for a man who thought he could outsmart consequences. Inside, Adrian poured himself a glass of scotch, hands shaking just slightly. He hadn't slept. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from investors demanding answers, lawyers begging him to stay silent, and Sienna crying in the other room. He ignored all of them. Then, the intercom beeped. "Mr. Blackwell, there's a woman here to see you," the doorman said. "She says she's family." Adrian frowned. "Family?" A pause. "She says she's your mother." His scotch glass froze midair. He hadn't seen Evelyn Blackwell in nearly 6 years, not since the day she called him a stranger wearing her son's face. They'd stopped pretending to care after his father's funeral. He'd built his empire alone, and he liked it that way. "Send her up," he muttered. A few minutes later, the elevator doors slid open, and there she was. Evelyn, mid-60s, elegant but simple. A gray wool coat draped over her shoulders, rain droplets glistening on her silver hair. Her presence filled the room with something Adrian couldn't buy: gravity. "Mother," he said stiffly. "What an honor. To what do I owe the sudden concern?" Evelyn studied him with calm, unblinking eyes. "The news," she said simply. "It's everywhere." He forced a chuckle. "Ah, you believe everything you see on television now?" "I believe what I raised," she replied, her voice soft but sharp. "And I know the man I raised would never kick a pregnant woman, especially not the one carrying his child." Adrian's smirk faltered. "So you came to judge me like everyone else?" "No," she said, setting her purse on the table. "I came to see if there was anything left of the boy who once said he wanted to build homes for people who couldn't afford them." He scoffed. "That boy grew up. He realized charity doesn't pay the mortgage." Evelyn sighed. "And now that same boy is about to lose everything because he forgot what homes are for." He slammed his glass down, voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about. Haley, she was manipulating me, making me look like a monster." Evelyn tilted her head. "And did she also make you forget how to tell the truth?" The room went silent. Adrian's breathing quickened. "You don't get it," he said finally. "I had to protect my image. Investors, board members, they don't forgive weakness." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Protect your image? You destroyed your family. And for what? A penthouse and a girl who posts selfies with champagne?" Sienna flinched from the doorway. She had been listening, makeup streaked with tears. "Mrs. Blackwell, please." Evelyn turned to her. "Child, you're young, but if you stay beside this man, you'll drown with him." Sienna's eyes filled. "You think I don't know that already?" Adrian snapped. "Enough, both of you." Evelyn reached into her coat and placed a small USB drive on the table. "You always thought I didn't know how you got your start. But I kept receipts, Adrian. You built this empire on blood money. Money stolen from a community fund your father and I helped create. You didn't just hurt Haley. You've been hurting people your whole life." He stared at her, stunned. "What is that?" "Proof," she said softly. "And insurance. For your son, not for you." Adrian's face drained of color. "You wouldn't." Evelyn met his gaze without blinking. "I already did." She walked toward the elevator, pausing at the door. "You think money will save you? It won't. The only person who could have saved you was the woman you left bleeding on a hospital floor." The elevator doors closed behind her with a soft chime. Adrian stood frozen, surrounded by glass and luxury, staring at the tiny USB drive glowing red on the table, proof that even a mother's love has limits. And for the first time, Adrian Blackwell felt something money couldn't erase: fear. It was past midnight when Marcus plugged the small USB drive into his laptop in the dim break room of Ocean View Medical. The rain outside had turned into a steady percussion against the windows, echoing like a countdown. Ethan stood behind him, arms crossed, watching the screen flicker to life. "What is this?" Ethan asked. Marcus's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Evidence," he murmured, "and if what Evelyn said is true, it's the nail in Adrian's coffin." The first file opened. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, invoices. But these weren't ordinary business documents. They were proof of embezzlement. Money siphoned from a housing charity in South Central Los Angeles, the same one Adrian had bragged about funding in interviews. The funds were supposed to rebuild apartments for low-income families after a fire. Instead, they'd been funneled into luxury accounts: Tiffany, Dior, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and one recurring name on expense reports: Sienna Vale. Marcus scrolled faster, his pulse rising. He used charity funds to bankroll his mistress. Ethan leaned in, his jaw tightening. "How much?" "Close to 4 million, Marcus said, his voice low. "This isn't just a scandal. This is federal crime territory. Embezzlement, wire fraud. He's done." He clicked another folder, audio files. Each was labeled by date. Marcus hit play. Adrian's voice filled the room, smug and drunk. "She doesn't even know her name's off the deed. I moved the assets last month. If Haley wants to leave, she can leave with her clothes, not my money." Haley, sitting on the nearby bed, covered her mouth. Her eyes shimmered with disbelief and humiliation. "He said that?" she whispered. Marcus paused the recording, his voice calm but burning. "He said worse. Keep listening." Another file played. Adrian again laughing with someone, probably a business partner. "Women like Haley don't sue. They cry, they beg, then they disappear." Haley's hands trembled as she pressed them over her belly. Ethan's fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. Marcus closed the laptop gently. "We're done hiding. This goes to Dana Morales tonight. She'll hand it to the LA Quarry Times by morning." Haley shook her head, voice breaking. "He'll come after you. He'll come after all of us." Ethan kneeled in front of her. "Let him. We've lived in his shadow long enough." Marcus stood, his lawyer's mind calculating every angle. "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about exposure. When he falls, the system that protected him falls too." Haley looked at him, her voice barely audible. "Why would his mother have these files?" Marcus gave a small, grim smile. "Because somewhere deep down, she still believed in right and wrong, and maybe she's finally ready to choose the right side." He inserted a flash drive and began copying the files. Progress bar, 14%, 26%. The seconds felt like hours. Ethan paced near the door, checking the hallway. "You think he knows she gave it to us?" Marcus didn't look up. "If he doesn't now, he will soon." Haley's monitor beeped steadily behind them. She spoke again, her voice stronger. "You'll send this to the police too?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, but the media first. Public pressure makes it impossible to bury. Once the story breaks, the authorities will have no choice but to act." When the transfer hit 100%, Marcus pulled the drive and pocketed it. "We have everything we need: fraud, tax evasion, abuse, and cover-up. He's finished." Ethan grinned, though his eyes stayed cold. "Then let's make it loud." At that moment, Haley reached for Marcus's hand. "Don't just destroy him," she whispered. "Make him remember what he did." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Oh, he'll remember. The whole city will make sure of it." Outside, thunder rolled again, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for judgment. Because when the truth finally surfaces, it doesn't whisper. It roars. By sunrise, Los Angeles was already awake with gossip. The Blackwell scandal had evolved from whispers to wildfire. Screens across the city flashed with headlines: "Millionaire mogul accused of assault, fraud, and infidelity." News helicopters hovered over Adrian's Beverly Hills tower, while radio hosts debated his fall like it was a sport. In the quiet chaos of Ocean View Medical, Marcus sat at a corner table with 2 phones and a laptop, methodically executing the plan. Every click, every email was a bullet aimed at Adrian's empire. Ethan paced the room like a caged animal. "You really think a few reporters can take down a guy like him?" Marcus didn't look up. "Not a few reporters," he said. 3 major outlets, 1 city councilwoman, and his largest investor. Together, they can burn a kingdom." He opened a new message, attaching the folder Evelyn had given them: financial records, audio files, proof of embezzlement. The subject line read, "For immediate review, Blackwell Charity Fund misuse federal crime evidence. Then he sent it simultaneously to 3 recipients: Dana Morales, investigative journalist at the Los Angeles Times; Councilwoman Teresa Lang, a longtime critic of corporate corruption; Nathan Reeve, managing partner of Horizon Equity, the investor financing Adrian's biggest project. Ethan leaned over his shoulder. That's all it takes? 3 emails? Marcus smiled thinly. 3 matches can light a city. At the same time, across town, Adrian was dressing for what he called damage control day. His assistant entered the room hesitantly. "Sir, the board meeting's in 20 minutes. Investors want reassurance." Adrian adjusted his cufflinks, the gold glinting in the morning light. "They'll get reassurance. I built this company. They wouldn't dare cross me." But when he arrived at the Horizon Equity offices, a sleek glass building on Wilshire Boulevard, something was off. The receptionist wouldn't meet his eyes. 2 men in suits whispered as he passed. The air was thick with judgment. He entered the boardroom. Normally people rose when Adrian walked in. Today they stayed seated. Nathan Reeve, the investor, slid a folder across the marble table. Adrian cared to explain this. Inside were printouts of the charity fund documents Marcus had leaked. Bank transfers, Sienna's name, the audio of Adrian laughing about Haley, crying and disappearing. "This is fabricated," Adrian said sharply. "It's slander. I'll sue every one of you." Nathan leaned back, unimpressed. "You used our project funds to pay off personal expenses and hide your mistress's rent. The city's already asking questions. We're cutting ties, effective immediately." Adrian's throat tightened. "You can't." "I can, and I just did," Nathan said. "Also, the city council's opening a formal ethics investigation. You'll be hearing from them." Adrian's composure fractured. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Nathan's cold smile didn't waver. "Yes, a man who just lost everything." Across the city, Marcus watched the first news notifications hit his screen. Horizon Equity suspends partnership with Blackwell Properties. A minute later, another alert. Councilwoman Lang calls for investigation into misuse of public funds. Ethan exhaled a shaky laugh. "That's one hell of a morning." Marcus grinned faintly. "And it's only 9 a.m. Down in Beverly Hills, paparazzi gathered outside Adrian's building as his Mercedes pulled in. He stepped out into a blinding storm of camera flashes. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Blackwell, did you steal from your own charity? Is it true you assaulted your wife?" Adrian's jaw clenched. No comment. One reporter yelled louder, "What about the recording of you saying she should disappear?" Adrian froze, the color draining from his face. Somewhere miles away, Haley sat in her hospital bed watching the live footage on TV. Her brothers beside her. The same man who once silenced her was now speechless before the world. Ethan smirked. "Looks like your empire's talking for you, Adrian." Marcus raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. "To justice." Haley didn't speak. She just smiled faintly. The kind of smile that comes when you finally breathe after years underwater. And for the first time, the king of Beverly Hills realized his crown had melted into ashes. The morning after Adrian's empire began to collapse, Ocean View Medical was swarmed with reporters. News vans lined the street, cameras pointed at the hospital's main entrance. Inside, Haley Morgan lay in her bed, exhausted from the chaos and the emotional storm that hadn't stopped for 48 hours. Her eyes were open, but her body felt heavy. She was still carrying her baby, but every muscle in her body screamed with tension. Marcus and Ethan stood guard like soldiers. They hadn't left her side since the scandal erupted. Nurse Kelly checked the monitors for the 5th time that hour, frowning at the numbers. "Her blood pressure's rising again," she warned. "We need to keep her calm." Haley turned her head weakly. "How can I be calm," she whispered, "when he's still out there?" Ethan moved closer, gently brushing her hair from her forehead. "He's not out there for long," he promised. "The cops are circling. He's running out of places to hide." But before Haley could answer, her body tensed. The monitor beeped erratically. Her breath hitched. A sharp pain ripped through her stomach. "Something's wrong," she gasped. Kelly's expression changed instantly. "We've got contractions, premature labor," she said, hitting the emergency button. The room filled with nurses and alarms. Ethan froze. "What's happening?" "She's going into preterm labor," Kelly said, her voice calm but tight. "We have to stop it." Marcus grabbed Haley's hand. "Breathe, Hale. Just breathe." But Haley was crying, her body trembling. It's too soon. He's not ready, she whispered, clutching her belly. Doctors rushed in, connecting IVs, adjusting machines. One of them looked at Marcus. We need her to stay as calm as possible. Any stress could push her into full delivery. Marcus glanced at the TV across the room. Adrian's face filled the screen, walking out of his office with security guards. Reporters shouted his name. He barked back. This is harassment. My wife's unstable. She's trying to ruin me. Haley saw the footage. Her breathing quickened. He's still lying, she said, voice breaking. He'll never stop lying. Ethan turned off the TV immediately. Don't look at him, he said firmly. He doesn't matter anymore. But her heart rate spiked again. The fetal monitor beeped faster. The nurse injected medication into her IV, her voice soothing. Hang in there, sweetheart. We've got you. For 10 minutes, the room turned into a battlefield of machines and prayers. Ethan paced, fists clenched, helpless. Marcus stood still, silently counting every beep. Haley's breathing came in sharp, painful waves. She whispered, if something happens to him, promise me you'll protect him. Marcus leaned down. Nothing's going to happen to your baby, Haley. I promise. You're going to see his face. You'll hold him. She closed her eyes, tears streaming. You don't know Adrian, she whispered. He always wins. Ethan's voice cracked. Not this time. He's already finished. Kelly's voice cut through the panic. Pressure's dropping. We need to stabilize her now, the doctor ordered. Magnesium sulfate, stat. Ethan pressed his forehead against the wall, whispering a prayer he hadn't said since he was 15. Please God, not her, not the baby. Minutes passed like hours. Slowly, the alarms began to calm. Haley's breathing steadied. The monitor beeped at a normal rhythm again. Kelly exhaled. Contractions stopped. She's okay, for now. Ethan nearly collapsed into a chair, wiping tears from his face. Marcus rested a hand on his shoulder. She's stronger than any of us, he said softly. Haley blinked, barely awake. Did we make it? Marcus smiled faintly. Yeah, kiddo, you made it. As the nurses left, silence filled the room, soft, sacred, fragile. The rain outside had stopped. Haley reached for her brother's hand. He can't take this from me, she whispered. Not him. Not anymore. Ethan kissed her forehead. He already lost everything that matters. And for the first time in months, Haley allowed herself to believe it, because sometimes survival itself is the loudest revenge. The morning sun pierced through the gray smog of Los Angeles, painting the city gold. But inside Ocean View Medical, the light felt sharp, intrusive, unwelcome. Haley Morgan slept fitfully, her face pale but peaceful. The crisis had passed, at least for now. Marcus sat by the window, reviewing legal documents. Ethan stood by the door, arms folded, every muscle still wired for a fight. Then, without warning, the elevator bell chimed. Nurse Kelly peeked into the room, eyes wide. He's here, she whispered. Adrian Blackwell. He just walked in with flowers. Ethan's jaw tightened. You've got to be kidding me. Marcus looked up, disbelief flashing across his face. He's not stupid. He's desperate. Moments later, the door swung open. Adrian appeared in a tailored navy suit, clutching an extravagant bouquet of white roses. The smirk on his face was practiced, his voice smooth as silk. Haley, he said softly, stepping inside like a man entering a movie set. You look beautiful, sweetheart. I came to apologize. Ethan moved instantly, blocking his path. Turn around and get the hell out. Adrian's tone hardened. I'm her husband. You have no right to. Marcus rose from his chair, calm but deadly. Actually, we do. There's a restraining order, served 2 hours ago. He held up a piece of paper. You come within 20 feet of her and you violate it on camera. Adrian froze for a fraction of a second, then laughed coldly. You think a restraining order scares me? I have a reputation to defend. The press is outside. I just came to make things right before they twist this any further. Ethan stepped closer until they were almost nose to nose. You came here to perform for the cameras. You've never apologized for anything in your life. Adrian's jaw clenched. You think you're the hero here? You're a bodyguard who couldn't protect your sister from her own mistakes. The insult landed like a slap. Ethan's fists tightened, but Marcus grabbed his arm. Don't, he muttered. That's exactly what he wants. Haley stirred awake, her eyelids fluttering. When she saw Adrian, her entire body tensed. What are you doing here? Adrian softened his tone immediately, switching masks. Baby, I just came to see you. I've been worried sick. The media twisted everything. Please, let's just talk. Haley's voice was faint but steady. You kicked me, Adrian. You almost killed our baby. He blinked, his charm cracking for an instant. No, sweetheart, that's not what happened. You fell. You were upset. You misremembered. Marcus stepped forward, voice like ice. Gaslighting a woman in a hospital bed while under a restraining order, that'll look fantastic on the 6 o'clock news. Adrian turned sharply. You think you can ruin me? You're just a lawyer with a laptop. I built this city. Ethan smirked. Then get ready to live in its jail. Before Adrian could answer, 2 uniformed officers appeared at the doorway, summoned by hospital security. Mr. Blackwell, one said calmly, you're in violation of a temporary restraining order. We're going to have to ask you to leave. Adrian glared at Marcus. You called them? Marcus smiled slightly. No. The hospital did. They're done protecting you. The officers escorted Adrian backward toward the door. He tried to maintain his composure, but fury leaked through every movement. You think this is over? He hissed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Ethan leaned in close, whispering, Yeah, I do. A man who's finally losing. Adrian's eyes flickered with rage. You'll regret this, Marcus replied quietly. No, Adrian, you will. As the door closed behind him, the room exhaled. The tension broke. Haley burst into silent tears, shaking. Ethan sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. It's okay, he whispered. He can't touch you now. Marcus looked out the window toward the swarm of reporters below. Let him scream. The world's watching now. Outside, cameras flashed as Adrian was escorted through the hospital lobby. Flowers still in hand, his mask of charm finally crumbling. And for the first time, the man who once controlled every narrative realized he'd just become the villain in his own story. The first raindrops of evening tapped against the glass windows of Ocean View Medical, like a metronome counting down to Adrian Blackwell's destruction. The city below glittered in chaos. Helicopters circling, news anchors speculating, hashtags multiplying by the minute. And then, at exactly 6:43 p.m., the storm hit. Dana Morales, the journalist Marcus trusted most, uploaded the unedited footage. The headline blazed across every phone screen in Los Angeles. Raw video, Adrian Blackwell assaults pregnant wife inside hospital suite. Within 5 minutes, the clip had 3 million views. Within 10 million. The video wasn't cinematic. It was grainy, shaky, real. Viewers saw Adrian's silhouette step into the room, heard the muffled argument, the sharp sound of the bed striking the floor, Haley's terrified scream. Then silence. The rawness made it undeniable. Inside Haley's hospital room, the glow of the television cast light over her pale face. Ethan, standing near the window, turned up the volume. The anchor's voice trembled as she spoke. We warn our viewers, this footage may be disturbing. Haley's hand gripped the sheets. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She simply watched as the world saw what she had lived through. The anchor continued. According to legal representatives, this video was provided by a hospital staff member and authenticated by 2 independent analysts. Adrian Blackwell has yet to comment. Marcus looked at his sister, cautious. Are you okay? Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. I'm not ashamed anymore, she whispered. He can't rewrite this. Across town, in his Beverly Hills penthouse, Adrian's phone exploded with notifications. His PR manager called 15 times. His lawyer texted one line, the footage is real, we can't contain it. Adrian hurled his phone at the wall, shattering it into pieces. Who leaked it? He shouted. Sienna stood frozen near the kitchen island, staring at her own phone. It's everywhere, Adrian. Twitter, TikTok, even the morning shows are replaying it. Then fix it, he roared. Delete it. You can't delete the internet, she whispered. He turned on her, eyes blazing. You think this is funny? You think this ruins just me? You were there, you laughed. Her face paled. Don't drag me down with you. Oh, sweetheart, he sneered, stepping closer. You were in the room, you're already down. Sienna's phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. She glanced at it, her expression changing. It read, We know you recorded him. Call me. DM. Adrian stormed toward his bar, pouring himself whiskey. His reflection in the glass looked less like a man and more like a ghost. I made this city, he muttered. They wouldn't dare touch me. But as he spoke, the news switched to live coverage outside his own building. A line of protesters was forming, women holding signs reading, Protect mothers, not monsters. Others chanted Haley's name. For the first time, the mighty Adrian Blackwell was outnumbered. Back at Ocean View, Marcus's phone buzzed again. Dana had texted him a single message. "It's done. The police just called. They're reopening her case." Marcus turned to Ethan. "It's starting." Ethan cracked a faint smile. "Good. Let's see how he handles a real fight." Haley leaned back against the pillow, her voice barely a whisper. "It's strange," she said. "The thing that almost killed me is saving me now." Marcus nodded softly. "That's what truth does. It cuts both ways." Meanwhile, downtown LA, the district attorney's office released an official statement. "We are aware of the circulating video involving Mr. Adrian Blackwell and are initiating a criminal investigation for domestic assault and financial misconduct." Ethan read the alert aloud. Haley closed her eyes, a slow breath escaping her chest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel afraid to sleep. Across town, Adrian stood by his window, staring down at the flashing lights, news vans, sirens, protesters. His empire reflected back at him through shattered glass. He raised his drink to his reflection and muttered, "They'll forget by tomorrow." But as the world shared Haley's story, one truth became clear. This wasn't the end of his scandal, it was the beginning of his reckoning. Morning sunlight cut through the smog over Beverly Hills, but it didn't warm the glass towers where Adrian Blackwell once reigned. The air inside Horizon Equity's conference room was frigid, thick with the tension of collapsing wealth. Adrian stood at the head of the long marble table, his reflection staring back at him from its polished surface. A man who used to inspire fear now looked cornered. Across from him sat 5 investors, each worth more than he'd ever admit. Their faces carved from stone. The biggest among them, Nathan Reeve, adjusted his Mont Blanc pen and spoke first. "Adrian, we watched the footage. We also saw the financial reports. You lied to us." Adrian forced a smirk. "You think some viral video and a few doctored spreadsheets define me? This is a witch hunt. My wife is unstable." "Stop," Nathan interrupted sharply. "Do not call her unstable, not in this room." The silence that followed was deafening. Another partner, a woman in a red suit named Claudia Lee, leaned forward. "The LA Times just published documents showing you used our funds to cover your mistress's expenses. You spent investor money at Dior and Tiffany. You built a penthouse on Rodeo Drive as a corporate retreat. You think we're blind?" Adrian slammed his fist on the table. "That money was part of discretionary spending." Claudia didn't flinch. "Discretionary spending doesn't include diamond necklaces for an influencer." Nathan folded his hands. "We trusted you with millions. You repaid us with fraud and scandal. We're severing all business ties effective immediately." Adrian's mask cracked. "You can't do that." Nathan slid a folder toward him. "Already did. We've also contacted federal investigators. You'll be hearing from them soon." Adrian stared at the documents, his face draining of color. For a man who once controlled empires, he suddenly looked small. "You'll regret this. I'll sue every one of you." Nathan stood. "You'll be too busy trying to stay out of prison." As the investors filed out, Adrian's knees weakened. The room spun around him. He was alone now, completely, humiliatingly alone. Outside, reporters swarmed the building. They shouted questions as he exited through the lobby. "Mr. Blackwell, do you deny the embezzlement charges? Are you cooperating with the investigation? Do you have a message for your wife, Haley?" Adrian didn't respond. He forced a smile for the cameras, the kind he'd practiced his whole life. But his hands trembled. When one reporter asked, "Is it true your company's investors pulled out?" he snapped. "Get out of my way," he barked, shoving the microphone aside. The footage aired within an hour. An angry man lashing out, no longer the polished CEO, but a villain unraveling in real time. Social media feasted on it. Comments poured in by the thousands. "Look at him losing it. That's the real Adrian Blackwell. Karma always comes back." At Ocean View Medical, Marcus watched the video with quiet satisfaction. "He's done," he said simply. Ethan leaned over his shoulder. "What's next?" Marcus smirked. "The law catches up." Haley sat in bed, sipping tea with trembling hands. "They'll arrest him?" Marcus nodded. "It's only a matter of time. Financial crimes always leave a trail, and Evelyn's files gave us everything." Ethan chuckled softly. "Guess money can't fix everything after all." Haley looked out the window at the city skyline. "It fixed him for a long time," she said quietly, "but it can't buy forgiveness." Across town, Adrian stumbled back into his penthouse. Sienna stood by the window, phone in hand, tears streaking her makeup. They're saying you're being investigated. The company's collapsing. I'm getting death threats. Adrian grabbed the whiskey bottle from the counter, taking a long swig. Then leave. You wanted the fame, now you've got it. Sienna stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, You destroyed everything you touched. He turned away, muttering, It was already broken. But as the door slammed behind her, Adrian realized the truth. He wasn't losing everything. He'd already lost it the moment he thought he could hurt Haley and still stay untouchable. By dawn, the city of Los Angeles buzzed with one name, Adrian Blackwell. The man who once owned half of Beverly Hills now owned every front page in America, his downfall unfolding in real time. Talk shows, podcasts, and tabloids couldn't get enough of him. The footage of him storming out of Horizon Equity had gone viral overnight. But this morning, something even bigger was coming. Inside Ocean View Medical, Haley was sitting up for the first time in days. She looked fragile but steady, her hair pulled into a low bun, her hands resting protectively on her belly. Ethan handed her a cup of warm chamomile tea. You need to keep your strength up, he said. Marcus entered, phone in hand, expression unreadable. It's happening, he said quietly. Haley blinked. What's happening? Marcus turned the screen toward her, a live news feed. Outside Adrian's penthouse, a swarm of police cars flashed red and blue. Helicopters hovered overhead. The reporter's voice was almost gleeful. We are witnessing the arrest of real estate mogul Adrian Blackwell. Authorities confirmed charges of domestic assault, fraud, and embezzlement following evidence leaked by a whistleblower. Haley's breath caught. She covered her mouth with her trembling hand as the screen showed Adrian being led out in handcuffs, his designer suit rumpled, his hair unkempt. Reporters shouted his name, but he didn't look up. Ethan grinned, unable to hold it back. That's karma in 4K. Haley's eyes filled with tears. I didn't think it would really happen. Marcus smiled faintly. It's real. The district attorney confirmed it an hour ago. He's going to court. The nurse entered quietly, adjusting Haley's monitor. You should rest, she said softly. You've fought enough for one lifetime. Haley nodded, but her gaze stayed glued to the screen. She wasn't watching with vengeance, she was watching closure. The kind that comes not with revenge, but with justice. Across town, Adrian was shoved into the back of a police cruiser. Rain began to fall again, washing the streets slick. Flashbulbs popped like lightning. He tried to shout at the cameras, something about being set up, but his words were drowned out by the roar of the crowd. Protesters stood outside the building holding signs. Protect mothers. Justice for Haley. No one is above the law. From her apartment window across the street, Sienna watched silently. Her phone buzzed with messages, sponsorships canceled, brand deals withdrawn, her follower count dropping by the thousands. She whispered to herself, You built your empire on her pain, and now it's gone. In the police car, Adrian's mind raced. This isn't over, he muttered to himself. I'll appeal. I'll buy my way out. But the officer beside him, a woman with steady eyes, said calmly, Not this time, Mr. Blackwell. At the hospital, Marcus's phone rang again. It was Evelyn Blackwell. Her voice was steady, though heavy with sorrow. It's done, she said. They called me to identify the documents. I told them everything, no more secrets. Thank you, Marcus said quietly. Evelyn paused. I didn't do it for him. I did it for her, and for that baby. Maybe something good can come out of all this. Haley listened, her eyes soft. Tell her thank you, she whispered, for choosing the truth. Ethan glanced out the window. The city's talking about you, Haley. You're not a victim anymore. You're a symbol. Haley shook her head. I don't want to be a symbol. I just want peace. Marcus smiled gently. You've earned it. Outside, the morning light broke through the rain clouds, casting gold over the city skyline. The same city that once worshipped Adrian Blackwell was now turning its gaze to someone else. A quiet woman in a hospital gown who refused to stay silent. On TV, as police escorted Adrian into custody, a reporter said, Justice has finally arrived for Haley Morgan. Haley exhaled slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek, not from sadness, but relief. Because this time, the world didn't protect the powerful. It believed the broken. 2 months later, Los Angeles was still buzzing. The trial of Adrian Blackwell versus the state of California had become the biggest media circus since any of them could remember. Outside the courthouse, camera crews camped day and night. Protesters held signs with Haley's name printed in bold letters. Inside, the man who once ruled the skyline now sat behind a defense table in a cheap gray suit, eyes hollow, hands trembling. Haley arrived quietly that morning, escorted by Ethan and Marcus. She wore a simple cream dress and no jewelry, just calm dignity. The hallways fell silent as she walked past. People whispered her name, some nodding in quiet respect. Marcus leaned close. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," he said softly. Haley shook her head. "I have to. I want him to hear the truth from the person he thought couldn't speak." In the courtroom, the tension was suffocating. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Dana Klein, stood tall beside Haley. On the other side, Adrian sat beside his lawyer, face pale and drawn. He didn't look like a millionaire anymore, just a man unraveling. When Haley took the stand, the room stilled. Even the reporter stopped typing. Her voice trembled at first, then strengthened with every word. "He told me no one would believe me," she said. "That money could erase anything. That people like me should be grateful to people like him." She paused, glancing at Adrian. His eyes flickered, but he said nothing. "He took everything, my confidence, my safety, my voice. But when he kicked me that night, something broke that he couldn't fix. Not my ribs, not my heart. His power." The jury watched, transfixed. The prosecutor stepped closer. "And why are you here today, Haley?" Haley took a deep breath. "Because silence protects monsters, and I won't be part of that silence anymore." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. The judge called for order. Across the room, Adrian's lawyer stood. "Mrs. Morgan, isn't it true you've suffered from emotional instability since your pregnancy?" Haley met his gaze, unshaken. "Yes, because of him." The lawyer hesitated, flustered. "And yet you expect this court to believe your recollection over my clients." Marcus, sitting in the gallery, muttered under his breath, "He's finished." The prosecutor cut in smoothly. "Your Honor, permission to submit new evidence." The judge nodded. Dana Klein played an audio recording, the one Evelyn had found. Adrian's voice filled the courtroom. "Women like Haley don't sue. They cry, they beg, then they disappear." Gasps filled the room. Adrian's face drained of color. His own words echoed like a death sentence. Haley closed her eyes briefly, a tear sliding down her cheek. Ethan gripped Marcus's shoulder. "That's it. That's the nail." When court adjourned for the day, reporters swarmed the steps. But Haley didn't speak. She just walked past them, head high, sunlight glinting off the courthouse steps. Inside, Adrian sat motionless as the courtroom emptied. His lawyer whispered, "We can try to settle." Adrian didn't answer. His empire was gone. His reputation ash, his freedom slipping away, one verdict at a time. That night, news anchors spoke the words Haley had waited months to hear. Day one of the trial has ended with devastating testimony from Haley Morgan. The prosecution's evidence appears overwhelming. At Ocean View, Haley sat by the window holding a small baby blanket, the one she had been knitting in secret since her son's birth a few weeks earlier. Ethan smiled softly. He'll grow up knowing his mom changed something bigger than herself. Haley nodded. "No, we did." Marcus raised his coffee cup. "To truth." She smiled faintly. "To freedom." Outside, the courthouse lights glowed like beacons against the night. And for the first time, Haley didn't just survive her story, she owned it. The courtroom was silent. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. The jury had been gone for 6 hours. Haley sat at the front beside her lawyer, fingers laced tightly together. Ethan stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, while Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the door the jurors would walk through. When the bailiff finally opened it, the room erupted into whispers. 12 faces filed back into the jury box, solemn, unreadable. Adrian Blackwell sat at the defense table, his once pristine suit wrinkled, his tie gone. He looked smaller now, hollowed out. For the first time, his confidence was nowhere to be seen. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair, looked over the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she said, "have you reached a verdict?" The foreperson, a woman in her 50s, stood, holding a sheet of paper. "We have, Your Honor." Haley's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "On the charge of domestic assault in the first degree, how do you find the defendant?" The pause stretched. Then came the words that would change everything. "Guilty." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Haley felt her breath leave her chest as tears welled in her eyes. The foreperson continued, voice steady. "On the charge of embezzlement and financial fraud, we find the defendant." Guilty. Marcus exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening with vindication. Ethan closed his eyes, whispering finally. Adrian sat frozen. He didn't react, didn't blink. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Adrian's eyes were locked on Haley, his last tether to control slipping away in front of the entire world. The judge nodded to the bailiff. "Mr. Blackwell, please stand." Adrian rose unsteadily. "This court hereby sentences you to 20 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 12. You are remanded into custody, effective immediately." The room erupted, journalists typing furiously, camera shutters snapping like rain. Haley stayed seated, shaking, overwhelmed by the sound of justice being spoken aloud. As officers cuffed Adrian's wrists, he turned toward her. For a brief moment, the charm that had deceived everyone flickered back. "You think this makes you free?" he hissed. "You'll always be mine." Haley lifted her chin, her voice steady. "No, Adrian, you don't own me anymore. You never did." The officers pulled him away. As he passed the reporters, the flash of cameras lit his pale, defeated face. The man who once believed he was untouchable now wore chains. When the doors closed behind him, the silence that followed was almost sacred. Haley turned to Ethan and Marcus. For the first time, she smiled without fear. "It's over," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "No, Haley, it's just beginning." Later that evening, the three of them stood outside the courthouse steps. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the city skyline. Reporters called her name, but Haley didn't stop for interviews. She just stood still, breathing it in. The noise, the chaos, the freedom. "Where to now?" Ethan asked quietly. Haley looked toward the horizon. "Home," she said. "Not the mansion he bought. A real home, one I'll build myself." Marcus smiled. "You've earned that." She glanced down at the small silver bracelet on her wrist, the one her mother had given her years ago. It wasn't gold or diamond encrusted, just simple and strong, like the woman she had become. As they walked away from the courthouse, cameras flashed behind them, capturing the image that would flood headlines the next morning. Haley Morgan leaves court victorious, a symbol of strength and survival. At that moment, she wasn't a victim or a scandal or a name in a headline. She was a survivor, a mother, a woman who had reclaimed her life from the ashes of someone else's empire. And somewhere behind prison bars, Adrian finally understood what true loss felt like. Not the loss of money or power, but the loss of control over the woman he thought he had broken. Because real justice isn't revenge. It's freedom. And Haley Morgan was finally free. So that's how our story ends. But maybe, my friend, you're still here for a reason. If you've watched all the way until now, it means something in Haley's journey touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you that pain doesn't define us. It refines us. That no matter how dark the night feels, the sun still rises for those who keep standing. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Haley's story isn't just about revenge or justice. It's about reclaiming peace after the storm, about choosing to heal instead of hate. And maybe, just maybe, it's a reminder for all of us that silence never protects us. Truth does. If you're going through something hard right now, remember, you are not broken, you are becoming. So, if this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, don't leave quietly. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs courage tonight, and subscribe to stay with us. Because more stories of strength, redemption, and healing are coming. You're still here, and that means hope is too.